Meniga oh Bimuasa Pole are you Yamala Delization in Yogi Gogo we are to eat Mari Agona I remember seeing a day without Union and Quebec only Savan Piotavare, Yellow Power, Tino of Piotavare. Tini Erari Celebito.
Sayadaw says, yesterday he has briefly explained how the yogis could develop their concentration powers each and every moment when they are noting, beginning from the primary object as the rising and falling, using whole mental strengths as the concentration groups, the effort, the awareness or the observing power or the concentration, how they can gradually strengthen their concentration power and how they get the understanding to know discriminately the physical phenomenon as well as the mental phenomenon. Today also Sayadaw would like to explain about the same matter furthermore.
Vivadana Yogi Nya a photo Shugwin Shugwe Ayoha Yunena in the power. In the power of the Shia. In the Baya, the Tabagana was an opinion with also that I changed are you or like we was an something, Shuma Mukandum Shia Melo Misu Yeshita. Yunena, however, Yoga Nane Umubido Tinshara for Yoga in such a way. Yoga, he didn't say a very old time. So you tell my level Miga Mabuki Livane Me Yogi, the Paishiva, in the Banera. Amiga Mabuki Liva Tavido Tinsara for Sachiva. Hey, Limura Leve, why are you call it? Don't need to chat it over a cha Mabuki Tumba Tavido Tinsara for Guru, Chibu, Adiga Tavi, Shua. Puramis Valeve. Father, you can't do them a whole child. They send you a picture of the Bajan. Writing it, landing it, charging it, seeing it, people. Don't need to share, you got it, or you had a lead about it. So, you got time to follow. With the mother, one better. Only Pinay, don't need to say, you got time to sure. I'll do the rest. Either say the only
the yogis who are practicing vipassana meditation, they have to observe as the observable object the physical and mental phenomena. between these two objects compared to the mental object, physical object is more obvious and prominent. Therefore, the yogis have to observe the prominent object at first. There is the saying in the text, the Vipassana yogis should try to observe the object which is more obvious and more prominent to grasp. So therefore the instruction is to observe the physical object at first. There are two types of physical objects, as the four elementary forces or great elementary forces, and there are derived elementary forces. Between these two types of physical elementary forces or physical processes, compared to the derived corporeality of physical object, the great elements are more obvious. So therefore, you have to choose one of the great elements to make the object for your practice. Among those four types of great elements, compared to the other elements, the wind element is more obvious and prominent. Therefore, as the primary object, you are choosing the wind element. As the rising and falling, when you are observing rising and falling, at that time you are observing the wind element, in which you can see various types of physical phenomena as tension, vibration, pressure, increasing pressure and decreasing pressure, movement, all these phenomenal aspects. According to the instruction of the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, the Buddha himself did the practice and expounded in his great discourse of Mahasatipatthana Sutta to observe the wind element, even when you are doing the walking meditation. He had instructed in Satipatthana Sutta, Gacchanto va gacchamiti pajanati, and so on. While you are going, you have to observe you are going. While you are sitting, you have to observe you are sitting. While you are standing, you have to observe as standing. So while you are lying down at that time, you have to observe as lying down. So going, all these movements occurs because of the wind element. So therefore, the wind element is more prominent object, and you are observing the object as rising and falling, the wind element.
Adukasa yogi myamara, kuna sasabenga yoga yoga, chinshazo yogu diga tabido, shuni yada. Nandabo po wilo, you the word of my Adukasa council on the temple. Home Ping called it, don't need to charge me $1 at the moment. I'm a senior level. The founder of the baby, my level, duty at beauty. Something to charge me $1 at that. Since it says it, why are you new to you? Whoever level, who like knew that. Malay Piola, Piola, you see the secret as you tell us, new word. That is you. As you knew to change in a new way of the ha, the Saturday, the wood of our level. Chicken, your twin. Your twin is a messenger, they should feel the election. The web is the yoga, the outside without so many was shoot a shoe our little secretly such that she could eye on it. Say not to say her Nina. Now, Nila Kajama, the Guga messenger did it, but then she did it, should 20 Yodi, however, if you eat and sing. I found up in a Kinsha, the Yogi Kura. Now, Yan like Kajama, Gong Nibo, Shin Lini, by the town with a thing in the flip letter. Yogi, by the town and Shin in the shit. I will be that. I will less. Don't argue the count, the dear the Susan Yeshua. Show me our secretary assess a job. I only have the meaning, neither take it up and sitting with that. Should win it. Keep it. See, get like it. Should film the machine. The shin in the figure. I do it near my.
At first, when the beginning yogis are trying to observe the rising and falling process and also other processes, although they are trying very hard to get the rising and falling, but because of lack of well practiced, well controlled concentration powers, they cannot observe the rising and falling. Even though they observe them, they just get not the phenomenal aspects but the conceptual aspects. They couldn't see the true nature of the rising, to realize the actual process of wind element as the tension, pressure, vibration, and so on. Later on, when they try again and again, they will get nearer and nearer to the concentration groups, forces. They can get rising and falling quite clearly. And when they are trying to do the walking meditation, at that time also, in lifting, in pushing forward, in placing, because of the well concentrated power, they can see the elementary force as the wind element. The nature is similar with the rising and falling when they are doing the walking. They can see tension, vibration, pressure, and so on. later on, again when they try very hard, they try to gather all the mental forces as the concentration groups, they will get more nearer to the objects. At that time, even when they are noting the rising and falling, not only they see the vibration, tension and the stiffness and so on, but even they can see there some kind of hardness, softness, wetness, and something like running water, a moisture, a motion. So in this way they can see various other elements which is not similar with the wind element. So they can gradually get other types of understanding also during the noting of rising and falling. Sometimes even they can feel the heat and cold in rising and falling. So there are different types of natures of elementary forces. So in this way, when they are doing the practice, they, as much as their concentration develops, they can use accurately their effort, they can provide their observing power clearly nearer to the object, and their concentration falls into the object and stick with the object without having any wandering thoughts. Their observing power becomes more and more clear, so they can see various aspects through possessing all these mental strengths in their practice.
ဖောင်းကိုက်မှာတောင်းတင်းလှုပ်ရှားယူသွားတဲ့မျိုးလူတွေပေါ့ဒါတွေလည်းပဲခုကြီးတစ်ခုကြီးကွဲလာတယ်ဒီကညာရင့်တန်တော့ပေါ့လေညာရှင်းတော့သူကလည်းကွဲလာတာပေါ့ရှားမျိုးဝဲတွေလည်းပဲဒီလိုပဲကွဲလာတာဒီလုံးနဲ့တစ်ခဲတော့မဟုတ်တော့အဲ့ဒီလိုရွှေ့ချခြင်းမရှိတော့ဘဲနဲ့အရှုပ်ထွေးကြီးပြင်းပြီးတော့သွားတာပါအဲ့ဒီသွားခြင်းဟာမင်္ဂတော့တင်စားပြီးတော့ပြောတဲ့အနေမျိုးပါပဲတကယ်စင်စစ်တော့အတိညာရဲ့တန်ရှင်းစင်ကြယ်ခြင်းအရှုပ်ထွေးမရှိခြင်းလို့အဓိပ္ပာယ်ယူရပါပါအဲ့ဒီဟာကိုဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့ဥပမာလေးရှင်းပါမယ်
The Sada says, when there arise same-natured elements, and again later on different natured elements, in the beginning the yogis might be in confusion and they may mixed up with those things, but gradually when they will have more concentrated mind, well organized concentration groups in their noting, each and every object clearly arise in their practice, so they can see with discrimination that what kind of elementary forces are arising and how they are noting them separately without mixing them. So that means when the concentration deepens more and more, their seeing power also becomes more and more clear. That is the clarity of understanding or seeing the elementary forces. They don't mix up afterwards. So that clarity which the meditators or the yogis gain during their noting, that is some kind of development of seeing the true nature of the elementary elements, or they are gaining gradual understanding of the physical as well as the mental phenomena. Sayadaw would like to try to clarify more how the yogis gain the clarity through their proper exercise in their practice.
ဆိုလိုတာတော့သင်ရှားတဲ့ရုပ်ခုကိုအထူးကြောင့်ထားပြီးတော့ဆွဲမြဲစွာရှုလို့ရုပ်သဘောလည်းပဲပြီးသားတယ်လို့နာမ်သဘောလည်းပဲအလိုလိုပြီးသားလာတယ်လို့ဒီလိုဆိုလို့ရုပ်ပွဲပြပြသိတယ်လို့နာမ်သဘောလည်းပွဲပြပြရှင်းရှင်းလင်းလင်းသိလာတယ်လို့ဆိုအတိညာရှင်းလာတာအတိညာရှင်းလာတာကိုပဲရှုခွင့်ရှုခွင့်ဒီရှင်းနေဆိုကျန်ကလည်းမှာဥပမာပေးထားတာတော့မျက်စိအမြင်ရှိတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တယောက်ဟာမစင်ကြဲတဲ့ပုံမွားတဲ့အာဒါစခေါ်တဲ့ကြေးပုံပေါ့ကြေးပုံမှာသူ့ရဲ့မျက်နှာကိုကြည့်ရပါတဲ့မျက်နှာရိပ်ကမပြီးသားဘူးကောင်းကောင်းမထင်ဘူးမှန်ရှေ့ကိကတော့ဘုရားမှန်ကြီးပြားကြီးကိုတက်ရပါတယ်ကြီးပြားကြီးမှန်နေတယ်လို့ပါကြီးပြားကြီးမှာတင်းနေကြီးနေတယ်ဝင်းလက်အောင်တိုက်ထားလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီကြီးပြားကြီးရှေ့မှာတော့ရရလိုက်အရေးခေါ်ပါတော့အခုကတော့မှန်မျိုးမဟုတ်ပါဘူးဒါတော့မတမရှင်းဖြစ်နေတဲ့မှန်မှာကြေးပုံကြီးမှာလေမျက်နှာကြည့်ရှုလို့ရှိရင်မျက်နှာမထင်ဘူးလေအဲ့ဒီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာမိမိမှာမျက်နှာမထင်ပါလားဆိုပြီးတော့မှန်ကြီးတော့တွန့်ပြပါလားဆွတ်လိုက်ပါလားတကယ်စင်စစ်တော့ထက်ခါပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီမှန်ကြီးကိုလုံးတော်ဝိရိယနဲ့ကြည့်ကြည့်မိကိုပုတ်တိုက်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင်အညီကြီးကြီးကင်းဝေးစင်ကြတော့ပြီအဲ့လိုအညီကြီးကြီးကင်းဝေးစင်ကြတော့တဲ့မှန်မှာမျက်နှာဟာအလိုလိုပဲထင်ရှားလာတော့ပါလေဒါလိုပါပဲထင်ရှားဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့ယူသဘောကိုအမြင်မပြတ်ပုတ်တိုက်ပေးတယ်လို့ပေါ့လေဆွေမြင်းရှုမှတ်တဲ့နေရာဖြစ်ပုတ်တိုက်ပေးလို့ရှိရင်အာရုံနဲ့မှစိတ်နဲ့နိဝရဏတရားကြီးကင်းဝေးစင်ကြပြီးတော့အာရုံနဲ့မှစိတ်နဲ့နှိလာတဲ့အခါရှုစရာလေးကတတ်ရှုတိနေရာလေးကရှင်းရှင်းလင်းလင်းတတ်ဆိုတာဘယ်လိုလဲဒီလိုကိုယ်လာတယ်လားပြောတာပါသူယောဂီမှတ်နေတာဒီတိုင်းပါပဲဒါကချုပ်ချုပ်ကဖောင်းပင်အာယုံနဲ့ဝေးနေပြီးတော့ပိုက်ပုံနဲ့နာကြီးထင်းရရှိတယ်ဖောင်းပင်အချင်းရတော့တာထင်းရရှိတယ်တခါလည်းပဲတမင်းလောက်ကြတဲ့သဘောတွေကပြည့်ညတ်တွေနဲ့ရောထွေးနေတော့မရှင်းတော့ဒီကြရှိပါများတဲ့ခါကျတော့တဏ္ဍာလေးတွေတွေ့လာဟောင်းတာလေးတွေများတယ်တဖောင်းပြီးတဖောင်းပေါ့မျိုးတူသဘောတရားတွေကိုခါတယ်ခါဒီ၃သိန်းလောက်ကိုယ်ပြီးတော့ဒီထဲမှာလည်းမျိုးတွေလည်းအေးတွေပြီးတော့ခဲလည်းသွားတာဒီတော့ဒါမျိုးလေးတွေပေါ့စစ်ကလေးမှာကြောတဲ့သဘောလေးပါတော့တာအလုံးလုံးသိပြီဆိုတာမှတ်ရတယ်အဲ့ဒီကွဲလာတာဟာအရှုခံဖြစ်တဲ့ယုံနာတွေကရှင်းမြင်လာတာမဟုတ်ဘူးငကိုလေးကယုံနာတရားတွေကဒီတိုင်းပဲရှိနေတာပဲရှုတည်တဲ့စိတ်ကဉာဏ်ကရှုပ်ထွေးမှုမရှိဘဲနဲ့ရှင်းလာတယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုပြောတာအဲ့ဒီကကြလို့ရှိရင်ရှုစရာတတ်ရှုတာတတ်ဆိုတာကွဲတည်သွားပြီတဲ့ဒီလိုဆိုလို့ရတယ်
Sayadaw says, when you see clearly the meditational object beginning from the rising and falling, that means not only you are seeing the object, but the noting mind itself. When you clearly note the object, that means your mind is becoming more clear to see the object clearly. And that clarity of mind, noting mind, is depending on the power of the mental concentration group. So at first you will get the clarity on the object, that is the physical phenomena, and then the noting mind, clarity in noting mind, and that is the mental phenomena. So in this way, first you get clarity on the physical process, and later on the mental process. Sayadaw gives an example. A person who has sensible eyes, or perfect eyes to see, he used the mirror to look at his face. Because of the dirt of mirror, at first he cannot see his face clearly. Sayadaw says in ancient times, especially in Eastern countries, they don't have mirror like today you have. The mirror is made of brass. So they have to rub the brass again and again to get proper view on it. It should be very clean. So they have to rub the brass again and again to get the, or what you say, light or something? Reflection. Reflection, yes. To get the reflection. So until the brass is clearly rubbed or polished with rubbing again and again, and the reflection may not come, then they cannot see their face clearly. Although they cannot see clearly their face on the mirror, they don't throw away the mirror. They rub again and again the mirror. Through that rubbing again and again, constantly, so the mirror becomes clearer and clearer. Then they can see their face clearly on that mirror. In the same way, Sayadaw says, in the beginning, when the meditators are trying to get clarity in their noting, beginning from the rising and falling process, they cannot clearly see the object because of the cloudiness in their noting. They shouldn't give up their noting to gain clarity on it. if they give up, then there won't be any clarity in their noting. So they have to rub again and again to get the reflection in their mind. As the person who wants to look at clearly his face, he has to rub the brass mirror again and again. Later on, as the person can see his face on that mirror clearly, when the reflection becomes pure and clear, in the same way, the meditators also gain same type of reflection through their rubbing again and again to get precisely what they are trying to gain through their practice. So they are trying to note the rising as rising, falling as falling again and again. Again and again. At first they just only may see the bloating abdomen as the form of rising. And sometimes the manner of rising. They couldn't see clearly the true nature of rising. But they don't give up their noting. They tried again and again and again. So later on they will get the clarity of rising as sometimes tension, sometimes stiffness, sometimes vibration, sometimes even cool, sometimes even warmness, sometimes even hardness, sometimes even softness. So at first they see similar type of nature, and later on, as much as their concentration develops, they deeply go with the object accurately, precisely, constantly, so much they will get clarity on the noting object. Sada says, it means they are getting more and more nearer to the object. What they are getting more nearer and nearer to the object? Their noting mind. So, when the object becomes clearer, that means the mind is involving with the object clearly. So mind becomes clearer. And they see clearly what they are noting. So therefore, it is necessary to understand that at first the yogis have to understand what they need to, in which they need to pay their attention. They need to pay their attention on the obvious object, and later on they can clearly see the smooth object or the the subtle object. Yes, they can see the subtle object also clearly. So therefore, at first they will see the rough object clearly. Depending on that rough object, so they can see the subtle object as the mental object. So then there will become clear that, oh, there are only these two phenomenal aspects, as the physical aspect and the mental aspect. Apart from these aspects, there are nothing more.
တော်တော်လေးမှတ်သားကြလာတဲ့ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေမှာဆိုရင်သူတို့အားရပါရပြောကြပါတယ်။ဖုံးတာလေးနဲ့ပိန်တာလေးလည်းအချင်းချင်းမရောဘူး။ဖုံးတာလေးပိန်တာလေးတန်တာလေးလည်းညူးပြီးသဘောတရားလေးတွေပါလည်းသူတို့အရှုပ်ထွေးမှုရှိပဲနဲ့ရောချက်မှုမရှိပဲနဲ့ ရှင်းလာပါပြီ clear ဖြစ်လာပါပြီလို့ပြောကြတယ်ဒီကြားထဲမှာလည်းကြားညက်ပြီးတော့ရှားမျိုးပဲသဘောတရားကြီးတွေဒါတွေပြည့်ပြတ်သားသားချမ်းသာပြီးတော့ကြည့်နေပါတယ်ချမ်းသာနေပါတယ်ဆိုတာကိုပြောကြတယ်အမှန်ကတော့မိမိရဲ့ရှုမှတ်မှုကောင်းလို့အသိဉာဏ်ရှင်းတဲ့သဘောကိုပြောရရောက်တာလေအဲ့ဒီသဘောပေါ်လေအောင်လို့လောကီဥပမာတစ်ခုပြောရမယ်ဆိုရင်ရှိရင်ကိုယ်ပြကြပါစို့သဘောလူပိုးကောင်လေးတွေပေါ့အဲပြည့်စိတ်ကလေးဆေးရပါတယ်ပြည့်စိတ်တန်းကြီးသွားတယ်ခဏခဏဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီတန်းကြီးလည်းမမြင်ပါဘူးနည်းနည်းလေးတိုးသွားတဲ့အခါအမဲတန်းကြီးတော့ချင်းတယ်သို့သော်ဒီအမဲတန်းကြီးကပါလေကျိုးမဲလားတခုခုလားဆိုတာပေါ့ဒါလည်းမသိဘူးတခြားလည်းအလွဲကြီးထင်တယ်ထင်တယ်နည်းနည်းတိုးကြည့်တဲ့အခါကျတော့လှုပ်ရလေးဖြစ်လာဒါလေးတွေကျိုးမဟုတ်ဘူးကျိုးပဲမဟုတ်ဘူးနည်းနည်းသေးခွဲသွားတယ်အကောင်လေးတွေပေါ့ရှင်းတော့ဆက်စားပြီးတော့သဘောတွေတွားနေတယ်ဆိုတာဒီလိုတော့သိတာသို့တော့ဒီကောင်ကြီးကွဲပြီးတော့ဒီလိုတော့မသိသေးဘူးပေါ့နည်းနည်းတိုးကြည့်တဲ့အခါမှာနှစ်ကောင်ပဲသုံးကောင်ပဲပေါ့ဒီတွဲလိုက်ခက်ကြမ်းကြမ်းတော့ဒီလိုတော့ထင်တာဒါဘာကောင်ကြီးလဲဆိုတော့အနိကဆုံးတိုးပြီးတော့ကြည့်ပြီးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဘာကောင်လေးပဲဒီကောင်လေးကလည်းအဟောင်းကောင်လေးရှိသွားပြီးတော့အတိတ်ကောင်လေးကလည်းဆက်နေတာဒီကောင်ကြီးကွဲလာတယ်အဲ့ဒီလိုကွဲလာတာဟာတကူကဒီကောင်လေးတွေကကွဲပြီးသားရှင်းပြီးသားပဲသူကလည်းဒီပဲသူကတော့ကိုကအတိမရှင်းတဲ့အတွက်မကွဲရပဲဖြစ်နေတာဒီကဒီကောင်လေးတွေတန်းကြီးနာနိကအောင်ကြည့်တဲ့အခါကျတော့ဒီကရှင်းသွားတာအမြင်ကရှင်းသွားတာဒီအမြင်ကရှင်းသွားတဲ့သဘောအကောင်လေးတွေကပြတ်သားသွားပြီးကြည်မြင်သွားပြီလို့ဒီလိုပြောကြတယ်ဒါလိုပဲဖောင်းပေးမှုကဘာမှမကြည့်ဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိဘာမှမထင်နည်းနည်းကြည့်လို့ရှိရင်တော့အတန်းလိုက်ကြည့်ဖို့သဘောတူပြီးခါတဲ့ရှိတော့ဆက်ဆက်ပြီးတော့သွားတယ်ဒီထဲမှာလည်းပဲမျိုးပွဲတွေလည်းပါနေတယ်ဆိုတာလည်းဒါလည်းမသိအတန်းသဘောလောက်ပဲပညာသဘောလောက်ပဲဒါတော့ပဲသိတာပဲကိုယ်ကံတော့အချင်းရတော့ဒါတော့ပဲသိတာဘုရားပညာလောက်ပဲသိတာနည်းနည်းလေးတိုးကြည့်တဲ့ခါကျတော့လှုပ်လေးတော်ပြီးတာလားတွေ့တာပဲတော်တော်လေးတိုးကြည့်တဲ့ခါကျတော့အလုပ်ကလေးတွေကနှလုံးလောက်သုံးလုံးလောက်ဒီလိုကွဲနေတာအတိညာနဲ့နိကသွားပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီလှုပ်လေးတွေအကျက်လိုက်ကြတယ်ဒီလိုဒါလည်းပြီးနေတာဖြစ်တာအတိရှင်းတဲ့သဘောပေါ့အဲ့ဒီဘုံမှာလည်းဆိုပို့ပြီးတော့ကြိုက်ပါလို့ဒီတော့ယောဂီကရှုမှတ်ဖို့လေးရှင်းပြီးတော့လာတဲ့ဟာကိုပြပြတတ်တာပြောတတ်တာကိုရှုရတာတခုရှုရတာတခုရှုရလေးရတယ်အတီးကိုဒါလေးရှိတော့အတီးလေးတွေလည်းနောက်ကနေတခါလေးတမ်းပြီးတော့သူ့အာယုံနဲ့သူ့အတီးနဲ့ပေါ့ကွဲပြီးတော့လိုက်တာပဲအဲ့ဒါပြုံးနေတာကွဲပြီးတော့ရှင်းနေတာသိတဲ့သဘောမျိုးပါပဲ
Sayadaw says there are yogis who are doing the practice diligently, respectfully, through their diligent and respectful practice their observing power gets nearer and nearer to the object. While they are noting rising, they can see clearly the rising as rising. When they are observing falling, they can clearly see falling as falling. They don't mix with rising and falling anymore. And even again in rising also, before they are mixing up with rising and noting. Later on they even tell, oh, now rising is another thing and the noting of rising is another thing. They can clearly see the noting and the knowable object. Even again in falling also same. Before they are thinking same thing. No difference in their noting. But later on they describe themselves. Now it is becoming very clear, Venerable Sir. Arising, stay apart, and the noting, there seems different. Noting and rising is not the same thing. And when I was noting the rising, it is very clear how the rising rises up. And I can see the stage by stage rising, process of rising. So they can clearly see the rising, what is rising, and what is the noting of rising. And before, they seem rising and falling is getting together. They are mixing up with it. Later on, while we are noting rising, rising is different and falling is different. So I can note falling also clearly, rising also clearly. So in this way, the clarity comes as much as they get nearer to the object with their noting power. And the nature also becomes clear to them when they are noting the rising. Now they are not just only see the form of rising, manner of rising, they can even see clearly the phenomenal aspects of rising. And they clearly give their explanation when they come to their interview. And their saying is very clear, because saying becomes clear when they see clearly. And because of their clarity in seeing, so their description also becomes very clear. So Sayadaw gives an example to make it clear. So suppose there is some kind of similar type of line in distance. While you are seeing the object from distance, you may not know what kind of thing is that. You may think, there might be black rope lying on. Even sometimes you may get confused whether that might be black snake or something, or some creepers or something like that. So you cannot decide what kind of thing is lying there in distance. If you want to see clearly what is there, if you come forward, if you go little forward, then you can clearly see little more. That may not be the snake. That may not be the creeper. That might be something, because I think it is moving. That type of sense you will get when you go near to it. And again, if you move forward, and then you can see, yes, it is moving now. It is moving now. So the motion you can see on that line. Now there will be some clarity. It is not the snake and it is not the creeper. It is small things moving. But still you are confusing whether they are attached together while they are moving. And if you want to see closer, clearly to it, and you go nearer to it, then what happens? They are black ants. So you will get the clarity. The moving thing is not the rope, not the snake, not the creeper. They are small black ants moving one after another in line. Still you are thinking the ants are attached together, all the ants are attaching together. And if you go nearer to it, then you can see, oh, the ants are separate, one after another, they are marching forward. So you will get more clearer, and you can separately see the ants one after another moving. And if you go really close to it, then you can see how they are marching forward, one after another, clearly. And what they are carrying with them also you can see. So in the same way, in practice also, as much as you get nearer to the object through your noting mind, you will get clearer understanding. You can see and you can view clearly all those objects, what are there to see and what are there to know. The objects are same, no difference there, but only when we couldn't get the clarity on seeing,